This is The Wilderness and the Wellspring, a podcast about the difficult times when you want to give up on your creative pursuits and the beauty of the act of creation. I'm your host, Jeff Lunt. This is episode 10, Boundaries. If there were a theme to 2022-2023 for me, it would be about setting boundaries and sort of reclaiming my time and energy. It's not unusual advice to talk about this, but I think I've met a lot of people who are creative and and also empathetic and caring toward other people. And while that is very powerful and leads to kindness and many other very good things, if you're hearing this and you're thinking to yourself that maybe in your life that has also led to you giving your time to other people to such a degree that you feel maybe bitter a little bit, maybe that you didn't get what you expected out of that time, and that maybe you saw other people who were less empathetic, less caring, less generous with their time toward other people, and thought when you saw those people succeed, maybe you were frustrated by that. What I can say is I've experienced that, and that although we all have responsibilities and things that we decide to give our time to, that if you are, especially if you're younger, you're healthy, you don't have a lot of obligations right now, like maybe you're going to school or you started your career, but maybe you're just taking care of yourself right now and you don't have a lot of things going on. Meaning you're not taking care of children or elderly parents, family members. You don't have some huge thing hanging over your head. If you've got your evenings and weekends free and it's for the most part just you, take the time. Take the time to do what makes you happy. Be creative. Be okay taking the space that you need to think and be creative. And when people ask for your time, be generous, but not giving to the point where you're sacrificing your hopes and your dreams and the things that are important to you. It's okay to spend time on the things that make you happy. I promise that if you don't give all your time to other people, they'll still be there. If anyone's ever told you or made you feel as if you didn't keep giving and giving and giving, that they'd walk away, chances are that's not true. And if that person does walk away when you try to set normal, healthy boundaries, you might want to think about the nature of that relationship a little bit. Not everyone will demand that of you. There's a famous kids book called The Giving Tree, where if you feel like you can identify with some of the things I'm saying, I would suggest you read it. It's very short. It's like a little kid's book. It's I don't know how many pages, but it's 20 pages or something. It's it's a short illustrated book. But it's also, I remember reading it and just thinking, wow, I feel for the tree. I've been there. And to go back to what I said about if there were a theme for this last year or so, it would be setting boundaries. I've had to learn the hard way to draw those boundaries again. In fact, something that's always stuck with me, I think it was probably over 20 years ago, a good friend of mine told me that after listening to what I was willing to do for other people and how far I'd be willing to go and how many chances I'd be willing to give other people, he said, "Wow, that's very nice of you, but one of these days someone's going to really, really take advantage of you." And he was right. And there's no one, in my case, there's a few rather deep betrayals. I think a lot of people have some kind of deep betrayal that happens to them at some point in their life. Many of us have some kind of life-altering or perspective-altering pain or trauma or something like that happens, and that's, to some degree, that's normal. That's just, you're alive long enough. That's going to happen. We all love and have our hearts broken or give ourselves to a cause that turns out not to be what we thought it was or something along those lines. But in my case, the way that it played out is maybe not in a long litany of deep betrayal after deep betrayal. It was more like me just giving too much of my time to too many people day after day, year after year. And all the while telling myself that that's what I was supposed to do, was sacrifice myself for others. But, when other people didn't sacrifice the same way back for me, it left me feeling very angry. I don't think I realized it at the time. It's taken a lot of reflection to come to that conclusion that I've spent a lot of my time being frustrated for the sort of standards of behavior that other people, that I had in my mind that other people weren't living up to, but that I would try to hold myself to. And it would gain me a lot of respect, and it's helped me build trust with people, which has been helpful, but it has definitely led to many times when people could see that I was willing to give and give and give, and using that. Sometimes just using it gently, or just maybe asking for a favor and not realizing that I was already overwhelmed because I wouldn't speak up or say anything. So, that person couldn't read my mind, but I was just kind of setting myself up to be always giving parts of myself away. And over time, that really ends up. So I've had to become comfortable with the idea that, although it's taken me a very long time to really dedicate myself to, I wouldn't say dedicating myself to creative life. It's not like I've given up my job or my career to go, work on games or do creative things. It's more like I've finally gotten around to making sure that I take the time to do the things that are important to me, because I didn't really draw that boundary very well. And if in the past, if somebody questioned that boundary or said, implied that maybe I wasn't giving enough, or I wasn't giving enough of my time to other people, I would automatically think, well, they must be right. Why would somebody I care about or somebody close to me make that demand if they didn't have a point? And I would just always give the other person the benefit of the doubt to such an extreme that, I never really wound up doing the things that I wanted to do. And, that hurts. It's not all lost, though. I mean, what have I gained by doing that? The one big plus to sacrificing your own priorities to other people is that they will put you to work. And if you embrace that work and you approach it with a mindset of, how can I make the most of this? How can I maximize how much I learn from this? Then you can, over a number of decades, you can really gather together a lot of information, be able to synthesize a lot more cross-disciplinary stuff than people who are less curious. or find other ways to utilize the knowledge of others. However, you will, when you're constantly giving like that, you'll wind up giving your effort and energy over to the pursuits and goals of others, which to some degree, you're helping your neighbors or your friends or your family or your community. To some degree, that's okay. It's healthy. It builds relationships, but it can also lead to a place where you spend a lot of effort and you've helped a lot of other people get to where they want to get to, but maybe you shortchanged yourself along the way. So this is a gentle reminder that it's okay to spend time on yourself. You don't want to become selfish. You don't want to be self-centered, or you don't want to turn your frustration into outward anger. You may feel angry about it, but you don't need to turn it toward anybody else. You just need to decide that it's okay for you to spend the time on the things that are important to you. In the same way that you've dedicated time to other people, it's okay for you to take that time for yourself. And if you can find a way to say no gently without giving in to the pain that you may be feeling, then you'll find two things. One, you'll be more available and more free from the anger itself by just letting it go and choosing a different path. Imagine being on one path for a very long time and having the choice to get off that path always available, but never taking it. And then suddenly realizing you could get off the path you don't like anytime you want, almost. And then just simply take the other path. Just visualize it in your head. Just simply take the other path. Not out of any emotional pain or anger or fear or anything else. Maybe out of a realization that maybe part of the reason you didn't step off of the path of others sooner was maybe because you were afraid to leave the comfort of what you knew, of what was familiar. But after you've built up some self-assurance and resilience and been through some trials in your life, I hope that at some point you'll reflect and realize that you're not only good enough, but you probably, once you've supported yourself for a number of years, financially and health-wise and everything, hopefully it will click for you that whatever happens, if you have enough skills and you're hard enough working, that there's always a way for you to have a roof over your head and to be secure, and that it's okay to take some risk. It's okay to try things and fail and have them come to nothing. But maybe it's a little bit emptier of a life if you don't try. Now, you could also take the flip side and just be extremely disciplined and focused on a goal. Like, let's say you'd like to retire, or you'd like to become financially independent or something. Those are some really hot topics that I'm not going to go into depth about them by any means, but those are some things that people choose, is that sort of like the life of marching toward a long-term goal over decades. And some people are capable of doing that, and that's fine. And if that makes them happy at the end, that's okay too. But the thing about having and enjoying some creativity and some joy along the way is that while postponing your own fulfillment can create a kind of deep resilience to hard times, it can also lead to that bitterness that you've given and given and given and not received much back. And it's okay to dial that back, 10 or 20%, and enjoy some of that joy along the way. So you want the persistence. You want the perseverance. You want the hard work ethic, but you don't need to be the hardest working person anybody knows. You don't need to be so hard on yourself that you don't that you don't give yourself some time. It's okay to accept where you're at and to do your best with what you've got, whatever those limitations are, because we all have limitations. No matter how many resources we have, you could say that, for example, the wealthiest people in the world have far fewer limitations than other people, and while that's the case in a lot of ways, they can hire out a lot of things. It's still a lot of work to organize all the energy into something, and so even people with different types or quantities of resources, they're still limited in a lot of ways. And don't forget that this entire existence is it's fleeting. You're going to hit a point in your life where time's going to feel like it's going by faster and faster and faster and faster, and that it's slipping away from you. And while it's true, although cliche, to say that at any point in your life you can make a different choice than the habit that you've been in your whole life, you can step off that path and do something new. I guess this is a general reminder that, the sooner you get off that comfortable path, you don't need to be reckless and dangerous in your stepping into your own, but the sooner you learn to be comfortable in the unknown, the sooner you can experience more of those things that so many people I've met don't think are possible, or they'll look at you and start to use words like brave or courageous or fearless, when really you're just stepping off the path that so many people are on out of fear. And I think you'll look back, and I hope you'll remember the times that you've tried something and maybe it didn't even work out the way you wanted. Maybe it went in a completely different direction, but it ended you up in a place you wouldn't otherwise be. And that's an interesting thing. That's an interesting place to be. So that's it for this episode. Talk to you later. This has been the Wilderness and the Wellspring podcast. You can find me on Twitter at Jeff Lunt Games. And I just wanted to say thanks for listening. See you next time.